Hello everyone, in this video we'll have a look into the skeleton system series 1. I'll explain the fascinating world of bones. When we think of human skeleton, we imagine static, dry rocks for support, but the science tells us a different story. Bones are living dynamic tissues that supports life. To understand how a bone works, we must first know the anatomy of a long bone. Perhaps a typical long bone has distinct regions. At the ends, we have expanded epiphysis present at both the ends. So this epiphysis is covered by an articular cartilage to reduce friction at the joints. So the long central shaft is called as diaphysis. The transition zone in between is called as metaphysis. Inside the bone is the masterpiece of engineering. The outer shell is the compact bone. This provides a dense strength, while the interior contains a spongy bone and it is filled with the lattice work called trabeculae. At the very center lies the medullary cavity, which houses the bone marrow, both red and yellow bone marrow. The entire structure is covered by periosteum, so this is rich in blood vessels and nerves. The life of a bone is managed by the construction of crucials. The physiological process by which a new bone is formed is known as osteogenesis or ossification. So this construction of crucial, here is a sample view of all these things. So there are three important cells: osteoblast, osteoclast and osteocytes. So these osteoblasts are called as the bone builders. So these bone builders are responsible for the formation of new bones. So next comes the osteoclast. So they are called as the bone cleaners. So they help in the breakdown and they reabsorb the old or the broken bones. So next one is the osteocytes. They are called as the bone supervisors. So they are responsible to maintain the mature bone tissue. So here is a small analogy of this concept. So we have a bone. So these osteoclast cells break down the old bone or a damaged bone. So they form here and these structures are called as osteoclast. So once they start cleaning, osteoblasts they get formed and they start building the new bone and finally a new bone is formed. So this is the process. And now we'll see how a new bone is formed. So the first process is the mesenchymal stem cells differentiate. So these stem cells they start develop into osteoprogenitor cells which differentiate into osteoblast. And now these osteoblasts start producing osteoids. So these osteoids mainly contain type 1 collagen, proteoglycans and glycoproteins. But at this stage the matrix is not fully mineralized. So in the next step, the calcium and phosphate ions they get deposited into the osteoids. They start forming the crystals and these crystals are called as hydroxyapatite. So these crystals give the bone hardness, strength and also resistance to any sort of compressions. So finally the calcium and phosphate ions get deposited over these osteoids and they make the bone as a mineralized one. The next step is the osteoblasts become osteocytes. Some of the osteoblasts get trapped into the bone matrix and they start producing and get differentiated into osteocytes. So these osteocytes are located in small spaces called lacunae and they communicate through the channel called as canaliculi and they are responsible to sense any mechanical stress and also regulate bone remodeling. So here is the a small biology and also we'll go into the summarization of everything what we have studied. So this slide comprises of the anatomy, function and growth of the bone cell. So let us now bring everything together. The skeleton system is the framework of our body and this is built from long bones with the regions like epiphysis, metaphysis and diaphysis. So this structure combines the dense compact bone both for strength and also porous spongy bone. So this ensures stability and flexibility. So beyond the structure, the bones also perform certain vital functions. They protect the organ, They act as levers for movements, example like to take any object with the help of our hand to move and also to locate from one place to another. So they also store essential minerals like calcium, phosphate, and they act as reservoirs for energy. And most importantly, the red marrow within the bone drives the hematopoiesis. So this produces blood cells that sustain our life. At the cellular level, the bone is maintained by the trio osteoblast, osteoclast, and osteocytes. They are the builders, cleaners, and supervisors. They work in sync to balance the growth and renewal. So next process is the ossification pathway. So through this ossification, bones get formed either directly from the tissue by intramembranous pathway or by replacing the cartilage in the endochondral pathway. So this dual process ensures the development, repair, and lifelong remodeling of our bone. So, in essence, bone is not just a rigid scaffold but a dynamic living tissue. It grows, adapts, and also sustains every day. So, viewers, understanding this biology will help us to appreciate how our own skeleton system is responsible for our human health. So the student viewers, I have few interesting facts for you. So first one is the bone needs sunlight. Yes, sunlight இருக்கிற சன்லைட்ல இருக்கிற விட்டமின் டி தான் நம்ம உடம்புல தேவையான கால்சியம் அப்சர்வ் பண்ணுது. அது இல்லைன்னா கண்டிப்பா நம்ம போன்ஸ் வீக் ஆயிரும். And this will lead to a condition like rickets, osteoporosis. இது எல்லாமே ஃபியூச்சர்ல வரக்கு காரணமாயிரும். அண்ட் செகண்ட் பாயிண்ட் என்னன்னா போன்குள்ளார ஒரு ஹிடன் ஃபேக்டரி இருக்கு. ஸோ ரெட் மேரோ நிறைய மில்லியன்ஸ் ஆஃப் பிளட் செல்ஸ் ஒரு சிங்கிள் டே ஒரு நாளைக்கு நம்ம உடம்புக்கு தேவையான மில்லியன்ஸ் ஆஃப் ரெட் பிளட் செல்ஸை ப்ரொடியூஸ் பண்ணுது. தேர்ட் ஃபேக்ட் வந்து கால்சியம் கனெக்ஷன். ஸோ ஆல்மோஸ்ட் நம்ம உடம்புக்கு தேவையான 99% ஆஃப் கால்சியம் நம்ம போன்ல தான் ஸ்டோர் ஆகுது. ஸோ அதனால தான் மில்க், ராகி, அது மட்டும் இல்லாமல் நிறைய கால்சியம் ரிச் ஃபுட்ஸை நம்ம பாடிக்கு ரொம்ப ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டண்ட். ஸோ இந்த வீடியோவில் உங்களுக்கு ஒரு கொஸ்டின் நான் போஸ்ட் பண்ணுறேன். ஸோ நம்ம இப்போ பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கிற வியூவர்ஸ் எல்லாருமே சொல்லுங்கள், நம்ம போன்ஸ் எப்படி ஃப்ராக்சரை ஹீல் பண்ணுது. ஸோ அதாவது ஹவு டு அவர் போன்ஸ் ஹீல் ஃப்ராக்சர்ஸ். ஸோ கமெண்ட்ஸை உங்கள் ஆன்சர் போஸ்ட் பண்ணுங்கள். தேங்க்யூ.